Hi guys, welcome back. In this lecture we are going to create some live applications in Visual Studio to demonstrate exception handling in C#. Okay, we have learned what is exception in C#, exception handling, different types of exceptions, try, catch and finally block to handle exceptions in a C# program. And these kind of approaches are used in almost all the languages to prevent your app from crashing as a result of exceptions. And we have just reviewed some of the code block to demonstrate how exceptions can be handled in C#. Now I'm just switching to Visual Studio to create a program live. I'm using Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition for demonstrating this application. Visual Studio 2019 Community Edition is free downloadable from Microsoft. So let's create an application to demonstrate the exception handling in C#. You can just click on Create a New Project icon here. Then I'm going to create a console app using .NET Core and C# as the language. So select this icon, click on Next. Now you can name your project. I'm going to name that application as App Exception Demo. Rest of the options I'm keeping default. Now just you can click on the Create button, so the project will get created. It will take few seconds to create it. Okay, we have created our application with the name App Exception Demo. And we have a class by default. It is named as program. And it is inside the file program.cs, which you can see in the Solution Explorer window here. Now, there is a main method. The main method is the entry point of a console application in C#. The program execution starts at the main method. And in our later lectures, we will see how we can add user-defined methods into a project in C#. And it is provided with a default statement for printing the text Hello World. We don't need this. I'm just deleting it. Now to demonstrate exceptions, I'm going to declare some variables, say 3 variables of the integer types, n1, n2, and say result. Now I have to read 2 numbers into the variables n1 and n2. So I need to display some prompt message using console.write statement, which is the output statement in C#. Those who don't know the input-output statements in C# can refer into my lecture, which explains basic input-output statements in C#. Okay, console.write is an output statement to display a message, an expression, different types of information onto the console screen. If you want to display some message, you can include it within double quotation symbol. Okay, here I'm just displaying a message. Enter first number. Now I want to read the number. To read the number, I need an input statement. The input statement in C# is the console.readLine statement. So on the left hand side, I'm taking the variable n1. On the right hand side, I'm using the input statement console.readLine statement. This is used to read an input value from the keyboard. But you can see that console.readLine is shown as red wavy underline. If you see something in red wavy underline, that means there is some error in that statement. And if you bring your mouse pointer on top of that statement, it will show the error. It shows cannot implicitly convert type string to int. What's the reason for this? The reason is that console.readLine statement considers any input read as string type. So this will read as string type data by default. Even if you input a number, readLine statement will consider it as a string value. A string value cannot be stored into an integer type variable. So we need to convert that value into a numerical value. For that we can use converter classes. Converter classes are used to convert data of one type to another type. The converter classes and its usage are explained in another lecture. Okay, so I have to use the converter class. It's like this: convert dot to integer value I want to convert. I can use the converter type 2 in 32, and here we can see there are different integer conversion methods: 2 in 16, 2 in 32, and so on. So I'm just selecting, say, 2 in 16 or 2 in 32. If your number is going to be a large number, you can consider 2 in 32. Okay, let's take 2 in 32. And now I can include the console.readLine as an argument of this converter method. So you can see that convert.2 in 32, the console.readLine is enclosed as an argument of this method. So now whatever you input, if it can be converted into a numerical value, it will get converted into numerical value, and that numerical value will be stored into the variable on the left hand side, n1. Okay, the same way we can read the second number. I'm just copying these statements, and now we can just make the modifications. Okay, we can change the prompt message from first to second, enter the second number. Then I need to convert the value which we input into integer value and store it into the second variable, n2. Okay, now I want to find out the result. Result equals, that's going to be n1 divided by n2. I want to divide n1 by n2 and store the result into the variable result. Now the next line, I want to display the result. So to display the result, I can use console.writeLine statement. And to display the data into the console screen, there are different formats available. Here I want to display the value of a variable result. It is not just a prompt message. So how can I display it? I'm going to start this WriteLine with a dollar symbol. Then in quotation, I write the result is. Then I'm using a pair of curly brackets. Inside that, I can enclose the variable result. This kind of approach is called string interpolation in C#. So what essentially we have done, if you look into the enclosed information, it consists of two types of data. The result is, it's just a string message. But if you look into this part, this is a variable. So we are combining a string message with a variable. So if you have different types of information to be displayed using a console.writeLine, the very efficient method is start it with a dollar symbol. Then you can enclose everything in a quotation. If any variable value you have to display, enclose it in a pair of curly braces. This is called string interpolation. Okay, now we can start running this program. And before running, just understand that there is a using system. System is an inbuilt class in C#. This class is defined with the input-output statements. The console.write statement, console.readline, console.writeline, these input-output statements are defined in the class or the package system. So if you want to use these statements in your program, you need to import this package into your application. For that, we can use the using statement. Okay, now let's run this program and observe the result. To run this application, just click on the run button. So the application is getting run. It is asking for the first number, and the cursor is waiting on the same line as that of the message. Because console.write statement will make the cursor to wait on the same line for input. But if you're using console.writeline, it will take the control to the next line. So that's the difference between console.write and console.writeline statements. Okay, let's enter the first number, say 12. Enter the second number, say 13. Okay, you are getting the result is 0. 12 divided by 13, 0, because it is an integer division. It doesn't consider any fractional part because n1 and n2 are integer types. Now it displays a message, press any key to close this window by default. Okay, we close this window by clicking or by pressing a key on the keyboard. Program is stopped. Now again run this program with some other values. Now in the previous run, the program successfully executed. There was no exception raised. Now again run this application with some other values. Click on the run button again. Okay, enter the first number as 12. Enter the second number as 0. So what we are going to do now, 12 will be divided by 0. And as per the mathematical rules, a number cannot be divided by 0. If you try to divide a number by 0, that will result in error. So in this case, there will be an exception thrown. So let's see what happens to the execution of this program now. And you can see that the application crashed at this statement. It shows this statement highlighted with a cross symbol, and it shows exception unhandled. What is the exception occurred here? System.divide by 0 exception, attempted to divide by 0. So the programmer has written the code without handling the exception. That's why it crashed. Application should not crash because of exceptions. Exceptions should be handled using try-catch blocks. Okay, now we are going to modify this program using try-catch block to handle exceptions. So stop the program, and now we can modify this program. So how we can modify this program? Include these statements in a try block and manage the exceptions using catch block. So let's modify this program now. So I'm going to insert a try block here, try, followed by a pair of curly bracket. Bracket starts here and bracket ends here. All these statements are enclosed in a try block, so that if any of these statements result in exception, we can handle it so that the application will not crash. For that, we need to write catch blocks. And we have seen that there can be multiple catch blocks to handle different types of exceptions. Okay, the first exception I'm going to handle is format exception. And I'm creating an object of that class ex1. And then start the catch block. Inside this catch block, we can manage format exceptions. And you know when format exception occurs, if the type of the data or the format of the data is mismatched, if that exception occurs, the exception will be thrown and this catch section will catch it. Here I'm just going to display a suitable information using console.writeLine of. We can just say invalid type of data. That's the reason. Invalid type of data. Sorry, invalid type of data entered. And then if we need, we can display the system generated error message also. That's available in ex1.message. That's going to be a property. So if you want to combine that property with this, then you can use the string interpolation. And then include a pair of curly braces, and in that you can just specify the property. Say ex1.message. That is the inbuilt error message. Okay. So we have handled the format exception. The same way we can handle next chance is divide by zero exception. So I'm just changing this exception class to divide by zero exception. Change the object because ex1 we have already used. So take it as ex2, and if this is the exception, that is definitely because we have tried to divide a number by zero. So we can just display cannot divide by zero, and we can display the error message. Say ex2.message. Now, if these are not the reasons for the exceptions, then we can generalize the exception by using another catch block. And here just generalizing the exception using the exception class. So if you say exception, any other type of exceptions will fall into this category. And create an object, say ex3. And here we can generalize a message. Some exception occurred, because we don't know what kind of exception was that. Some exception occurred. And just display the message associated to that exception. ex3.message. Okay, now we have included all these statements in try block. We have added some catch blocks with the two types of exceptions particularly handled, and all the other types of exceptions generalized into this category. Now if we need, we can include a finally block also, and that's optional. Okay, I just add a finally block, and you know that finally block will get executed in both the cases, in case of exceptions, and if not, exception occurs also. Just display a message to indicate that the control has entered into the finally block. So I'm just entering program control entered the finally block. Okay, so now the program is completed. Let's try to run this program now and see what happens. Okay, now enter the first number, say 12. Enter the second number. Here I'm going to enter a number in an invalid format. Say I'm going to enter 6 in string. You know that 12 cannot be divided by a string 6. So let's see what happens. It shows invalid type of data entered. Where from this has come? This has come from this catch section, and then ex1.message. This part is the inbuilt message. Input string was not in a correct format. Then see program control entered the finally block. that means exception occurred, then the finally block is executed. There is no crash in the application. Application is not crashed. Why? Because we have managed exceptions in the program. Okay, press any key to close this window. Now, let's enter some other values. Again, run this application by clicking on the run button. Enter the first number as say 23. Enter the second number as say 0. See what exception has occurred? Cannot divide by 0. That's from here. That means divide by 0 exception is handled. The inbuilt message is attempted to divide by 0. Program control entered the finally block. Now again press any key to continue. Run the application again. This time try to enter some valid data. Say 23, then say 12. See, the result is 1. 23 divided by 12, integer division. Result is 1. Program successfully executed. Program control entered the finally block. There is no exception. Still, finally block is executed. So what's the importance of finally block? Finally block will get executed in any case, in case of exceptions or exception does not occur. So finally block is going to be very useful when you write some database applications in C#, and for writing into the database you need to open the database, and during the writing process of the database consider that some exception occurs. Still you need to close the database. So you can write down the close statements in the finally block. So the finally block will get executed in any case and the database will get closed. So database will not remain open even if an exception occurs. That will be discussed in one of my lectures that deal with database programming in C#. And you can again use the finally block very efficiently when you write some file management program in C#. I'll be using that exception handling in file management program in a later lecture.